Welcome back to the Trans Talk Hub podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa, alongside the co-host, Braxton.
Hello again, everybody.
Welcome. So today we're going to talk about the recent legal changes in Texas as it pertains to DPS. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Texas DPS has basically stated that they will not be honoring any sort of gender changes. You can change your name, but if you do a name and a gender change all in one, it's going to be basically overlooked, denied, even if your court order states that you're clear, which is illegal. So, basically pretty much everybody who's trans is, to be fair, a lot of people are fairly concerned about this, including myself. I'm not going to say that I'm not. Because, with one thing is another, typically. And the fact that this was done overnight, it took a leaked email to basically have people understand what this process was that they were doing. And actually, what I'm going to do here in a second is I'm going to pull up the leaked email because I saved it. And I'm going to read it a little bit, and we're going to kind of go through it. But I guess while I get all of that kind of prepared here, how do you feel about the recent changes, and what do you think we can expect with all of this?
I mean, I think what we can expect is an uproar for sure. I mean, regardless of what side of things you fall on, which I would hope would maybe start the process of bringing us back together. Who knows? Probably not, but at least lead in that direction. But I think that all of it kind of sucks. Like, I'm always a very two sides to every coin kind of guy, and I understand why it's happening. I don't agree with why it's happening, but I do understand. And, I think there's a very distinct difference there, but they're scared of trans people at this point, right? And this is nothing new. We've talked about this in the past. Obviously, this comes from the representation that the trans community has allowed to be elected for itself, and most of that representation being poor representation, and this is the outcome of that. And it's incredibly frustrating because, yes, I'm upset with the governmental side of it, that we don't have anybody in place that can realize this. Like, I'm not even a politician. I'm not educated really in any of that stuff, and even I can see that, and it's pretty frustrating that nobody can be like, okay, well, maybe we just need to put stricter guidelines in place. That's a better start. But just jumping to taking away the rights from those of us that aren't causing a stink, that are genuinely just trying to assimilate and find some sense of normalcy in this world and just blend, I don't understand why we have to be punished as well. And even then, I don't know. The whole thing is just terrible. It sucks. It's awful. This is not a good direction to go in. It's kind of daunting to think about the future and what it means if this is the direction that we're heading in. Like, what's next? I think that's the scariest part of it. So I don't know. Hopefully we see a little bit of pushback and some unification between, the split sides that we have within our own community. And hopefully we can make a difference, not only just in this area, but how we treat each other in general, and this whole mess that we found ourselves in regarding the trans topic.
Absolutely. I think it's all of this, bad representation in my mind has to be the reason why people like Ken Paxton, which is the guy that behind the scenes pushed all of this,
Yep.
And I don't think people realize just how bad this is, because it goes a little bit further than, oh, you can't get your driver's license updated. Oh, you can't get potentially your Social Security done or your birth certificate done. No, what they're talking about is collecting records, putting us on a list. I don't think I have to go too far into detail for people to understand that you don't really want to be on a list for anything.
We've seen that before.
We've seen this before. And I'm sure a lot of people could be like, oh, you're blowing this out of proportion. It's not going to be that bad. Like, I don't know anybody who wants to be on a list for any sort of reason. Like, why do you want to collect all this data on trans people? It sounds a little bit scary to me, and it sounds a little concerning. And I don't think that it's wrong to feel that way. Yeah,
not at all.
For me, I mean, thankfully, I've got my driver's license done. I've got my Social Security done, but I've not gotten my birth certificate done. Thankfully that's through vital statistics, which is a little bit different than DPS. But who's to say that's not next? Because I might
Exactly.
not get that done
Exactly.
until, I have reassignment surgery. I don't know when I'm going to have that done. So, it could be a month or two and they decide like, hey, let's just throw birth certificates in there,
Yep.
like these other things that are going to affect us. And, honestly, yesterday I was in a pretty major Zoom meeting with,
Hmm.
it was like 150 people deep. There was a bunch of like Texas organizations that support trans people. HRC was there. The Human Rights Campaign. There was some pretty notable sources in there, and they were all really concerned.
Of
And
course.
these are organizations that study law, and they pay attention to all of these laws. So it's like if these organizations are worried and telling us that we need to like fight against this and we all need to kind of step up, I'm kind of thinking it's probably a pretty good sign that we should do that. And, it's our rights at the end of the day. And it sucks that, we're losing them like overnight without
Yep.
this big process or anything like that. It's like, oh, by the way, let's send this little email that nobody knows but the internal people. And we're just going to start denying and not tell anybody.
Yep.
Thankfully, there was, somebody that, kind of blew the whistle or however you want to say it and said, wait a minute, you guys should see this. I'm so glad that they decided to do that, because if it wasn't for that person who, leaked the email that we're about to read, we wouldn't know about any of this.
Yep.
People would just be asking like, why is my, ID being declined? Why are you not accepting my gender change? All of these things. And they probably would have got like run of the mill, answers.
Sure.
But now
Sure.
we know what the truth is.
Hmm. Well, and it's sad too to see that, like, I mean, we've talked about this. I've been saying this for at least the past couple of years. Like, eventually they are going to come for our rights. But my question up until then has been, what rights don't I have? I didn't want an answer to that. I did not want an answer to that question. The whole point of it was to be like, there aren't any we don't have. And so, like, to see that that's kind of slipping away is it's definitely uncomfortable and a little scary for sure.
Absolutely. So I want to go ahead and share the screen here, and I already have it pulled up. So let me go ahead and I don't need audio, so perfect. So can you see my screen here?
Yep, I could see it.
Perfect. So this was a court order notice to employees from Sherry Gibson. As you can see, there's like 2,000 people who got included in this email. 19 people gave a thumbs up. So that's you know, not very cool to see. But I'm going to read this whole thing,
Yep.
and hopefully people, can read this okay as well. But as you can see, they said effective immediately, August 20th of 2024, the department will not accept court orders or amended birth certificates issued that change the sex when it differs from documentation already on file. The validity of such documents is currently under review by Office of the Director to ensure that all state and federal guidelines are being met. For current driver's license ID holders, the sex established at the time of the original application and listed in the driver record will not be changed unless there was a clerical error. The sex will reflect the sex listed on the primary document presented upon original application that is already on file. This does not mean we will deny the issuance or renewal of the driver's license or ID. The issuance can proceed with documentation on file, and this decision will be left up to the customer. If a first-time applicant presents conflicting documents such as birth certificate with a court order requiring a sex change, the sex listed on the original birth certificate will take precedence to record the sex. If a single court order contains both a name change and a sex change, we cannot accept the order. The applicant will be processed with no change and with the information on file. We will continue to make corrections when a clerical error has been made and documentation supports the correction. All court order sex change documentation that cannot be processed should be scanned into the record, and the customer's name and driver's license ID number be emailed to this email. Please notate on the email in the subject line, sex change court order. Changes resulting from clerical errors do not need to be reported. The email address is for internal reporting only and should not be shared with customers. Customers should continue to report issues when using the customer service or inspector general emails as they do currently. And then basically just like, signing off. So pretty wild email if you ask me. But I guess
Yeah.
before I go into it, what all do you get out of that?
I think something that bothered me pretty much throughout the whole thing is referring to us as customers, not just trans people, but people in general. This is not like a business transaction. This has to do with our lives. This has to do with like our comfortability in the long term of our existence in this world. So to refer to us as customers is just like, okay, well, that's already shitty. So I've already just kind of started writing you off. But all of it's just, it's ridiculous. I get it. I understand trying to protect certain things, and this being their way of protecting women, children, whoever it is that they think's in danger. I'm so sorry, my cat's gonna start booping the camera. Okay, fantastic. Um, anyways, yeah, I don't know. I'm really hoping that this doesn't last very long, because this means that there's no hope to just feel as normal as possible. You little stinker. I told you it was gonna happen. All right. We might have to have your mom come get you, you little stinky girl. She's very sweet. She just needs to be involved, you know? Yeah, hopefully this doesn't last too long. It just sucks for those of us that are actually trans and just trying to be normal and just trying to live a normal life. And this is a part of that, you know? I mean, for the longest time, handing my ID over to somebody was daunting, and I didn't want to do it, and it made me uncomfortable. And now it's like you just don't get to escape that. There's no hope to get out of that. There's no hope for normalcy. So ultimately, this is a bad idea. It's not a good idea. I don't see it lasting, because I definitely know there's going to be a ton of pushback. However, with this being an election year, there's no telling. And I think that's another layer to it that just kind of makes this super uncomfortable.
Yeah, I honestly don't feel any different than you with this. I think being referred to as customers is a bit ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
We're, people, we're humans. This is a vital change for us for safety reasons, a lot of things.
Yep.
So many people love to say like, well, you don't actually need to do this. It's like, okay, how? This is a
What if
safety
your
thing.
document said a name that wasn't your name, wasn't what you go by? What if all of your documents said that you were a dude, but you were born a woman?
Exactly. And
Like,
the funny thing to me is that they love to use the word clerical error. I'm pretty sure we all feel there's a clerical error.
correct.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Now I kind of poke fun at that a little bit. I know this is a serious matter, but it's like, that's how I feel. It's like, if you want to say like, oh, well, we're only going to fix it if it's a clerical error.
Right.
Well, it is. Especially
exactly.
like my birth certificate, to an extent, is a clerical error.
Yep.
My name is no longer what it shows currently.
Yep.
So that is a clerical error. I don't see how it could not be. And I'm not saying that, I'm not going to be able to go get my birth certificate, but it's like, these things kind of scare you for that next process. And it kind of makes me, kind of be a little upset at myself, because it's like, well, I put my birth certificate off for months at this point, and now I might lose the right to even change it.
Yep.
Which is crazy to me that, we're potentially going to lose rights that every person should be able to have.
Yep.
It's a part of being able to be truthful with who you are, and to be able to say like, hey, this is me, etc. And I know people are going to push back on like, well, do you really need your gender changed? Biological this, biological that. We're two people who accept our biology, right?
Correct.
So we're not trying to fight on that. But it's like,
No.
For me, I'll speak to mine. I got mine done for safety reasons. Like, my
ID
does say
that.
female. Mine does say female. But I did it for safety reasons. I didn't want to go into a bar or something like that, and then somebody see male on there and then like freak out,
exactly.
or there be this big thing, and maybe there wouldn't have been, right? But I'm just trying to look out for myself.
But are we
my
willing to
safety.
take that risk when our life
exactly.
is it, like, that's my whole thing with that, because you're completely correct. It's a safety thing at the end of the day, even for folks that think like you and I do, and we don't just go with whatever the community says we're supposed to think. How in the world is it fair that we have to now go put ourselves in potentially dangerous positions? Because even though I think this way and I'm not, the annoying type to shove it all down your throat and you call me the wrong thing and I'm going to bitch and yell at you, but that doesn't mean that this person might find out and doesn't want to hurt me, because they don't know any of that stuff about me. If the only thing that they find out is it could be someone at the gas station, and I don't smoke, but I'm buying a pack of smokes or something, and I've got to give my ID for that, and they see that, and maybe they have a problem with that, so they follow me, and again, it doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but my life is not something that I want to risk, not like that. So even the possibility of that happening is something I would like to eliminate, and not having the opportunity to eliminate that is incredibly frustrating. It's just not fair. I'm all for the gatekeeping, 100%. I've said this so many times, I'll say it so many times more. Gatekeep the hell out of the trans thing. I'm here for it. I think that people should only transition if they are genuinely trans. You have dysphoria, all of these things that check the boxes. So gatekeep that stuff, like past stuff that does that. I'm cool with that. But this is just like completely obliterating the right of all people, of actual trans people. I get keeping the people out that are just using the label. They don't have a place here anyway, so I don't really care how this affects them or how they feel about it, because they'll cry over the sun not being as shiny as it should be today, Like, it's just the smallest shit, so that I don't care about, but people like you and I are going to be gravely affected by this, and it's just not fair. It's bullshit. It was a terrible call.
It really was. And, I don't mean to go on a tangent here because I could probably go really deep on
Sure.
the conversation that you mentioned. But, and we've talked about this off the podcast, but I guess maybe, since you mentioned it, we'll go into it a little bit while we're already on the podcast. But, both you and I don't want to say, well, I mean, for me, I do struggle with gender dysphoria.
Same.
I have my ups and downs and stuff like that. But it's crazy to me to hear the stories from people who say, oh, I'm trans, but I don't experience gender dysphoria. It's like, tell me how that works. Because I kind of feel like that's the whole reason you're trans.
It is.
I don't align. I don't feel comfortable. Like for me as a biological male, I don't feel comfortable growing facial hair. Super dysphoric for me. I don't like the fact that my hair doesn't grow the way I'd like. I can't grow this really long, hair.
Right.
Like I have to, take supplements and all kinds of other stuff to be able to do that. There's a lot of things that I'm dysphoric about. So I just don't understand how you could say I'm trans, but I don't have gender dysphoria.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Even like, even sitting here on the podcast and recording this, I have moments of dysphoria. When I catch a glimpse of myself and I'm like, oh, I look like a fucking girl. Like, I don't like, it still happens. I don't understand claiming that gender dysphoria is not congruent with being trans. That just, how else do you know? Otherwise, you're just androgynous, right? Or whatever other word that's not us, it's just not the same. And I don't understand why we're like so up in arms about that. Because then this shit happens when we don't separate these things. And I've been saying this. I don't even know. I can go back and find receipts if anybody wants them. I've been saying this. This is exactly what's going to happen. I've tried to warn so many people, all these people that want to get shitty and claim that you don't have to have gender dysphoria to be trans, and that I'm transphobic because I think so, and I'm a trans medicalist, and I'm just a bigot, and I'm awful, and I'm so privileged, and all this shit. No, I'm thinking ahead. The whole world doesn't revolve around me in my head. This is a shared collective space where we are all inhabiting this. The things that we do are going to affect the whole. When you don't think about that, you're selfish. You're a bad person, and you'll have to stop doing that shit. And that's why I get so like heated and passionate about this shit, because I've been telling y'all, but instead of listening, taking in the message, y'all just want to rebuttal and defend your pride because you're so fucking prideful. Well, this is what pride gets you. So happy Pride, everybody. This is where it got us. Good job.
It really did. And like we say these things on the podcast, like each episode, because it's true. It really is. Like we wouldn't be here if people were looking at good examples. of trans people. They're looking at the worst examples of trans people and then making these new legislation and laws. Like, that's what they're using. They're not using the people who are like, wait a minute, he or she, these other people, they have a head on their shoulders. Let's not focus on them. These people are causing hell. We're
Yep.
tired of seeing it. That's the people that they're coming for. But it sucks because it affects people like you and I. I'm not saying we're the only ones out there, but
Well, yeah,
there's a
people
lot of
like.
good trans people out there who are logical and they think good.
Mhm.
Those are all the people who are affected by this as well. And I don't feel like it's fair because we put a lot of energy in doing this podcast with the intent of let's turn it around. It's time, but let's all come together and do what's right and stop, being, like you said, so prideful that we can't, see the truth in things,
Yep.
And do things the right way. I'm tired of it. I really am. And
Same.
it's like, this is affecting us directly. We're not just speaking on this because like, oh, it's a trans thing, so we should speak on it. Like, no,
Yeah.
I mean, what's next? Like I said, birth certificates. I haven't filed mine. Even if I had, I still feel like, if you're trans, you still are going to want to see good for other people.
Yep.
So like I hate to like scroll down my Facebook group and hear people share their stories about, hey, I filed literally the day before this came out, and now I'm gonna be denied.
Yep.
That's
And
it.
you have to spend money to do that.
You have to.
There's
Yeah,
fees
it's like
and shit, and you don't
$300.
get those back. You don't get those back. Like, this whole thing is just so crazy. It's just the thing that frustrates me is it's just like a huge "I told you so," and I don't even want it to be. Like, there's no gratification in that. It doesn't feel good, but I told you so. So like,
Yeah.
when do y'all start listening? When do y'all like grow up, get over yourselves, stop crying about every tiny little inconvenience that happens in life as if that doesn't happen to every single other person? Grow up and get on. Like, this is what y'all are doing. Y'all are going to tear down everything in your path because you're so self-set. You're just set on yourself. How can I make me happy? Well, it's not about you. It's about the whole. There's a whole bunch of us, and it's the same people that claim that they're fighting for trans people and they're fighting for the rights of trans people while you're out here causing the whole turnaround for their rights to actually get stripped away from them. And I know a lot of people won't see it that way, right? They're like, they just think that I should just be mad at the people that are doing this and the people that put this into place. And while I do not fully agree with them at all, I think they're just as stupid. Like I said earlier, they can't see that this is a dumb idea, that not every trans person is wacko crazy, gonna scream at you for every last little thing you do. So they're just as stupid. It's not that I side with anybody, but I completely understand why they're afraid and why they're going to try to just completely bar all of it. I get that. And if you guys could start getting that, maybe they would stop being so scared of us and taking shit away. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to understand, as much as it might piss you off and as much as you can run to TikTok and put a video on there and say your feelings, they still have the power. Not us. At the end of the day, that's how it is. So you got to be strategic about these things. You got to use your fucking mind. And they don't.
I mean, this was an overnight change.
Yep.
The only people that got a warning of this was the internal employees.
Yep.
And it sucks because also, one thing that they mentioned right now is that so you don't end up on this list they talk about, or this, I forget how they used it in the email. But I think they said like a register or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Did you hear that?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's like a register or something.
Yeah. So like basically all these like, HRC, all these other like organizations are saying don't file right now unless you want to end up on that list. Hold off.
Yep.
I know it sucks.
Yeah.
I went through the process, took me a little while to get to it, but I went through it. It's not a super quick process. It's not a fun process, but and I know for anyone out there who's like, well, I shouldn't have to wait. Like, I'm going to just file and whatever happens, happens. You're going to waste your time and your money.
Yep.
And
I mean,
so
we shouldn't have to pay rent. We shouldn't have to have jobs. But at the end of the day, we do. And you still get up and you go, well, some of you still get up and go to your job every day and pay your bills because you have to. It sucks. That's not lost on me. I don't like it either. It's bullshit. I'd rather be posted up out on a beach for the majority of my life, chilling, catching fish, vibing, not giving a fuck about all this shit, not having an iPhone. Like, all of it sucks, right? I think we can agree on that. Like, our world is not perfect, but you got to understand the system you live in, and are you going to let it play you, or are you going to outplay it? It's pretty simple. I don't know.
Exactly. And like all we want at the end of the day is for everyone to just be patient. We do need to fight this. We're not saying you shouldn't. We're not saying you shouldn't be prepared to, back these different organizations that are already preparing documentation as of yesterday. Preparing documentation to file against the state federally. And, we need to be able to back these organizations and help them out, because they're going to be the ones who are going to win this on our behalf.
Yep.
And, the thing is that we got to support them. They're organizations who are there for us. Like, that's their whole purpose. If
Yep.
it wasn't, that's their whole shtick, and, we have to be able to support them, but also don't go making crazy TikToks about
Yeah.
this process. Yeah, sure, we're doing a whole podcast about it, but we're not coming at them direct. We're upset. Of course we're upset because you made an overnight thing that's affecting all of our lives.
Yep.
But we're not going out and busting the doors down to the DPS and, this, that, and the other. We're not doing that. And I don't suggest anyone do that or recommend, or you shouldn't. But let me just say that for
this isn't going to war. This is fighting for a peace treaty is where we're at. That's where we've arrived. It has to be a peace treaty. There's no other way that we're ever going to find any peace on either side of this. Like, we have to sign the peace treaty. We can't keep going to war with each other. It's clearly not working. When has it ever worked? All that does is tear down civilizations, right? And make us have to completely start over. Like, we fought so hard to be where we are already. Can we not just fight to preserve that instead of just continuing to fight? Like, this is, I don't know. It's just ridiculous. We have to find a way to work together, work with them, approach them in a way that is digestible on both sides. This is the right needs to learn how to approach the left needs to learn how to approach the right. I'm not calling out any one side. All of you are kind of idiots right now, honestly. That's what's happening. Sorry. But chill. If you're on the far side of either of these, what are you doing? Quit fighting. Look at where we're headed. This is not conducive of peace, of what our country is even supposed to stand for as a whole. So whether you're a patriot or you're not, right? You just want a safe place to live and you love your country. Well, don't you want your country to be the best? That's not what we're doing now. Y'all are pushing us so much further from that. So we have to learn to come together. We also, we're talking about these organizations. We also need these organizations to understand that too, especially if they are going to fight on our behalf. Y'all can't come at them all shitty and pointing fingers and telling them that they just suck and all this, because then of course then you're just pissing them off, and now you're both just mad at each other, and you're not listening, you're not hearing each other, you're not recognizing each other, seeing each other. We're never going to move forward if we don't. So everybody just needs to chill, take a breath, and let us move forward, because this is stupid. All of this is stupid, and it doesn't have to happen. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy time. We talked about this, and unfortunately, a lot of what we said is starting to come to fruition, whether we wanted it to or not. We didn't want it to happen, but we knew it would, because, like I said, all of these bad examples of trans people is what's got these, changes to be made in the first place. But yeah, I would say my word to anyone who hasn't filed yet is do not file right now. Hold off. It doesn't matter if you've been waiting for the last 5 years and you're deciding now I want to do my ID. Hold off. You don't want to end up on their list. You don't want to, wait it out, because we will move past this. We will succeed. And the biggest part of this is think back to some of the wins that we've already had. Texas a few years ago, maybe it was a few years ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, I can't remember. They were coming for the bathroom thing. There was the bathroom bill. It went to it was a whole deal in Austin. A bunch of trans people flooded the Capitol. we ended up winning that
Yep.
because we came and we were in numbers, and not in a like violent way, but
No.
we were there in numbers to show, hey, we exist.
Yep.
And we came out in the right way. So I think it's going to take roughly the same approach when it comes down to all of this. Now, ultimately, I think this is a little different because I think it's a little bit deeper than, oh, hey, then you should just allow this again and take back the change you made on August 20th.
Right.
I think it's deeper than that, because now the Texas DPS is showing that they're willing to actually break the law
Yeah.
overnight and not worried about it. To them, it wasn't a thing
Yep.
until, I'm sure when the court order, whatever, comes down on them, and they realize, like, yeah, denying court orders is illegal. And, hopefully we see something out of it. But, that's all I could hope for, is that, we take this approach in the right way, and we spread the message without being excessive. And I think,
Yeah.
honestly, we need
Exactly.
more non-trans people to help us in this fight, because the more people who can speak on our behalf, the ones who, like you and I, who
Right.
are logical. I've told a lot of people about this, and they're like, oh my God, Alyssa, what can I do? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't know. Like,
Yeah.
the only thing I could think is, like, put some good, if something pops up like a forum, or, something where, maybe they go to, asking people, like, their thoughts on the process, and, should this be revoked or whatever, speak out against it,
Yep.
and let your voice be heard. That's all we could ever ask for. And that's all we want, really, is just, people to speak on our behalf outside of the community, who know that there is, good, logical people who are doing things the right way. We're not being, excessive with the points, that we're trying to make. And, honestly, we just want to live our lives and be respected,
Yep.
and, not have to deal with this sort of issue, because we would much rather just live our lives and be talking about happy subjects and,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But unfortunately, the longer that this continues, the more we have to talk about these things. And I don't particularly enjoy talking about legal things. I don't know about you, but I
No.
really honestly don't enjoy it. But
Bottom of
it's
the
like,
list. Very bottom of the list.
very bottom of the list for me as well. But it's like, it's hurting me. It's hurting all of us, whether
Yeah.
you've had it or not. Like, who's to say that they don't revoke it and go back in the history and be like,
Exactly.
we're Xing that out. This was your original documentation. This is what we're going to force you to go off of now.
Yep.
Who's to say that they're not going to do that?
Yep. And let's be clear, we don't need like non-trans allies that are speaking on our behalf on like what it is to be trans, or gender dysphoria, anything along those lines, but just speaking on behalf of our character, right? And saying, I know trans people that are fantastic people. Not that we don't need y'all spreading the information on what it is to be trans. we just need you guys to back us up when shit gets like this, regardless of what side of the fence you're on, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all deserve a right to be comfortable. None of us asked to be here, right? So we should at least work together to make sure that we can all be comfortable in some way. Not comfortable in the sense that, I'm just going to affirm you, right? Because you still also need a little tough love so that we learn how to navigate these situations, right? Because clearly we don't know how to properly navigate these situations, but we definitely have to work together. We got to come together, and we can't let this continue. We've got to find a way to squash the differences and find a way to better define our shit, or, something. I don't know if we need like a giant board meeting with all trans people and we just take a vote there and we get it all done, wipe our hands with it. I don't know how we go about it, but we got to start moving towards that. I'm so tired of fighting over this shit, especially like you said, the legal stuff, the political shit. I'm so tired of trans being a political term. That is so crazy to me. It should have never become a political term, and now it is. I'm just tired of that. So hopefully we can move past that if we can all just kind of put our own shit to the side and recognize what actually matters.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm just, I presented this initially, because it is such a, big thing. And I'm glad that you did go into the whole fact, like, don't speak on the trans side as it is, just speak on how your interaction with good trans people has been.
Right.
Like why this, speak about it from that angle. Like,
Yep.
oh, I couldn't imagine what it would be like if somebody said my identity was not accurate,
Yep.
or my documentation's not valid. How would you feel? Outside of the trans thing, let's put it back on the other. Like, how would all of you feel if this happened to you? It
Yep.
wouldn't, because I mean,
Right.
let's be real, that's the
You're not the
majority.
anomaly, so people
Yeah,
don't.
you're not the anomaly,
Yeah.
you're the majority. But,
Yeah.
regardless, I think people should just put themselves in our shoes for a moment and imagine, the harm that places. We talked about the safety, things like that. And, it's just, I remember how happy I was the day that I got my ID and I looked at it and I was like,
Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy, but for me, it was like, at this point, I just want to go to a bar just to like show my ID, be like, yep,
Yeah. Yeah. All the
Alyssa,
things I was afraid of before that I robbed myself of certain experiences because of. Now I don't have to have that same fear. I'm like excited to go do these things now. It's like, every time my friends want to go swim or something, I'm like, well, I don't really like pools. That's not true. I love swimming. I absolutely love swimming. I wear a binder. That's uncomfortable to swim in. And then it's like wet and soggy and nasty. And it doesn't really dry with the rest of so it's just like a whole thing. I cannot wait for the day that I can actually be excited to go swimming again. Because I love swimming, but I'm like, nah, it's not really my thing, And it's just not the case. So it's things like that I think we do deserve as people because we do get robbed of certain. I don't think people realize that because they don't ever have to face that. Of course, they're not going to realize that. It's not your thing to realize, but it does happen and it kind of sucks, And so to take that opportunity for us to get away from all the things we've robbed ourselves from in order to make other people comfortable, I think we deserve an opportunity to go back, especially when it is like we've made ourselves uncomfortable for so long to make you guys comfortable, right? And so this is where like I start to get my shit. Like I understand the left side of things too. I understand why people are upset. I understand all of it sucks. Nothing's perfect. But I don't know. I hope that this isn't one more thing that is just added to the list of bullshit. I really hope that this gets eradicated real quick because this is stupid.
I do too. And, hopefully more people start to realize these changes and, you can, take the information that we've provided to you today and, you can kind of follow through with, some of our suggestions and help, be a part of the, like you said, the erasure of this new change because it's not right.
Nope.
It isn't right. So I think with that, honestly, there's not much to this as a whole. I think we pretty much shared all that we can share about this and how to navigate it if you are a trans person, how to navigate it if you're not, to kind of just help out and how you should go about that, as a whole. If you're watching on YouTube, definitely feel free to subscribe. As I mentioned,
Please.
Every episode. Drop a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment. How you feel. If you've been affected by this, feel free to share your story. I think the more that people, hear other people's stories, the more that they can connect and see just how real this is, honestly. So, if you are affected by this, leave a comment, share your story. We're always commenting on any sort of comment that is left on the channel. So, definitely feel free to do that. If you're on Spotify, they just recently allowed comments on Spotify podcasts.
Nice.
So that would be really cool if we could get some comments going on the Spotify side of things.
Yeah, maybe we can respond to some next week.
Absolutely.
That'd be cool.
And I think they also have like a QA they can do. So if any of you have questions for us, we would like to, I know I'm only speaking on my behalf. You can chime in if you feel any different.
Yeah, I'm for it.
But I'm down for the Q&A. Like I know we spoke a lot about our lives and things like that, but I'm cool with a Q&A podcast or, something, or
awesome.
maybe we dedicate a chunk of time to do like a Q&A or something like that and speak to some of your questions. But, as always, we really appreciate you listening to each podcast. If you're somebody who has been watching the podcast from the very beginning, I really appreciate you. And, if you are just chiming in, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. And, obviously we have some other episodes that you may enjoy after watching this one. But with that, I think that's pretty much it from me. Any last words from you, Braxton?
Yes, ma'am. No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered all of it. Again, hope you guys are enjoying. A Q&A would be really cool because then we don't have to think so hard about what what topic we're gonna cover and how we're gonna do it. So that'd be really tight. If y'all have any questions for us, I'm pretty much an open book, so I'm down to answer anything. But I think really closing statement is just like, let's stop fighting each other and please try to focus on a way to like fix all this discourse between us because if we don't, things like this will only continue to happen further out across the US and we don't want to see this kind of thing spread around regardless of what side of things you're on, I'm sure. So, hopefully we can just come together and stop this kind of shit from furthering on.
Absolutely. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close it out and, join us for the next episode. Until then, have a good one.
See ya.